Thank you all for coming here and for your precious time. And it's great meeting you. And yeah, today I'm going to discuss and I'm going to share some major findings of my recent paper, which will be published in a journal. And this paper was actually written with Professor Hwang Lee, Korea University, and we analyzed the Korean Air and Asiana Airlines case, which is still going on in the United States. And we decided to analyze this case because this case has so many interesting parts in the aspects, especially in the view of decision making. So, which is a little bit different from the topics mainly discussed in the field of competition law. And okay, the first slide shares a background of this case. As we all know that perhaps almost every government has a really strong mandate to protect the market. And this applies also equally to Korea. And as you can see here, Article 119 and the 119, the Korea's constitutional law, says that Korean economy is based on free market. And then following this constitutional statute, MRFDA, the Korean competition law, stipulates that from Article 9 to Article 16, that the Korean Competition Authority can control anti-competitive measures, and they can impose some remedies, and then they can sometimes even block the deal where anti-competitiveness is highly likely anticipated. But someone may ask a question whether Korean government has been doing really well. The government is fulfilling its mandate correctly. Well, mostly, I think, the government has been effective in fulfilling its mandate, especially the KFTC, as widely known as a really proactive enforcer around the world. And their approach is sometimes really experimental, and some people criticize this approach as reckless. But anyway, what I want to say is that KFTC has been not fearing of intervening in the market. And if any really negative effects and the negative consequences are expected, they are not afraid of blocking this deal. But occasionally, it fails to fulfill its mandate, even fostering consolidation through its own initiatives without appropriate remedies, resulting in suboptimal outcomes. Hyundai and Kia, some of you may already know. I mean, this really big company was created by the government's anti-competitive or industrial approach. And SK Telecom and the Shinsegae Telecom, these two companies also merged thanks to the government insufficient remedy. And lately, Hyundai Heavy Industry and Daewoo Shipbuilding, these two companies tried to merge, and I think to the initiative of the government, but it failed because of the European Union's intervene. And most recently, Korean Air and Asiana Airlines decided to merge, pushed back by the government's promotion and initiative. So the KFTC conditionally cleared this deal. And as I already mentioned, that this deal is now still under review in the United States. Why does the Korean government repeat such suboptimal choices? Here, suboptimal means that it could have done better, but it failed in getting the very optimal, achieving the optimal result from its choice. So it's a kind of academic term that represents the policy failure. So I will use this term very often. So please keep this in mind. And suboptimal means a policy failure here in this context. Then why Korea's border control sometimes fails. And some people might argue that the first reason is that lack of recognition of the competition policy. Some people might argue that president and the people still want industrial policy, or some people might argue that, or maybe the government still lacks in enforcement resources or capabilities or expertise, which is necessary for nuanced economic analysis of complicated murder cases. Especially the KFTC, in order for them to implement the competition policy very well, they need to be fully fledged in terms of enforcement capabilities. I mean, they need a lot of economists and a lot of really well-prepared lawyers, but neither of them is convincing from my perspective and satisfying, especially for recent instances, because Korea's economy has been shifted towards a free economy, especially from the 1997 Asian financial crisis. And several measures have already been adopted and established and successfully being operated to implement the competition policy. As you can see here in the next slide, I put the text of the laws. So if you're interested, you can refer to these provisions, which show that the Korean government is ready, at least institutionally, ready to promote the competition policy. And when it comes to the KFTC capacity, we have to remember that KFTC is really highly assessed and highly rated by really third-party institution. And as you can see here in this slide, I just put some survey outcomes from the Global Competition Review, and then it shows that Korea Competition Authority is now rated at a really high rate in almost all aspects. So it cannot be a really plausible excuse for them to repeat stupid decisions. And in practice, I mean, I stated some really stupid cases, Hyundai and the Korean Air cases, but recently KFTC intervened very proactively and in SK Telecom and the CJ Television case and Delivery Hero and the Better Minjo case, where the KFTC blocked, the first one was blocked, and the second one, in this case, the KFTC ordered the first to divest its food delivery business to acquire the second largest, or the Better Minjo is the first largest one in Korea. But anyways, Delivery Hero is a German company. So globally, it's way larger than the Better Minjo, but it decided to acquire Better Minjo. It's a smaller company, but it still dominates the Korean market. But the KFTC decided to order him to sell its food delivery part to others in order to acquire this business. So what I want to show is that maybe someone argued that it was not necessary or it was not optimal, but you can sense that the KFTC has not been fearing of intervening the market. But why is the Korean government prone to occasionally fail? I mean, sometimes just let monopolizing mergers happen. That's the main question of my paper. And as you can see here, I just summarized the track record of the KFTC, especially in the field of merger control, and then they very often block the cases. So you can see that in order to find out some reasons why the KFTC made such really stupid decisions in a few cases, you have to look at decision-making process rather than looking at the result or just blaming the KFTC's independence or something. Because, as you can see here, the public interest theory. I see that the existing studies, especially in the field of competition law and especially in Korean competition law, many scholars assume that government is supposed to intervene in the market where some problems happened in the market. And so it is regarded that government action is to protect the public interest. And then they assume that what they assume is that in the market, individuals make their own choices and then market works. But they see the government as just a whole, as a whole. I mean, this government, this organization is also a place where individuals interact with each other, but the competition lawyers sometimes and many times just assume the government is just still there, and then they are also focusing on what is going on in the market and whether this problem is market failure or not. But we have to also look at the government in the same view. That's what the public choice theory says. So in order to understand why the government made such a really stupid decision, it was my perspective that we have to look at how individuals interacted and made their choices within the government. So, and in order to conduct this research, I borrowed the public choice theory and then explored the content of this theory. And using this theory as a framework, we applied this to the most representative and the latest case, Korean Airlines. And then we tried to extract some implications from this case. This is just a picture that I draw to explain you the traditional public interest theory. I mean, so we may be well familiar with this approach, I think, because we are lawyers and we sometimes think that government should intervene in this case and in this way, in this problem, to fix this problem as a benign ruler of the market. And then what this picture shows that market is active here normally, but if sometimes it fails, the market has to intervene to fix it from the perspective of protecting public interest, and then the market can get recovered from the malfunction. So this is a really beautiful story. That's what we usually think when we conduct some research. But in the reality, we have to realize that government is a place where so many individuals interact on their own perspectives, and then the Congress is the same place, and the citizens are also affecting the government choice, and then the businesses and the workers and just the undertakings as well, and the court, even court is also a place where individual judges reflect their own views to the institution's decisions. Okay, so far we have explored the background of this study. So I designed my research as follows. The key question is this, and theoretical framework, as I just mentioned, is a public choice. And then I choose the Korean Air and Asian airline case for this case study because it is most representative and the most peculiar case and the most influential and very timely. And I believed that if this case can be explained from the perspective of public choice theory, I think other suboptimal cases can be also explained from the same perspective. Okay, this is just a table of contents. If you're interested, you can just read it. And so public choice, we are lawyers and this is a law class. So I wouldn't address the very details of the public choice theory, but what you have to remember here in this section is that even government officers, they are individuals who are really rational, and they are also self-interested, and they adopt maximizing strategies from the really traditional perspective. Self-interested doesn't mean that they are selfish, but mean that they have their own preference. That can be really public one, or that can be really really divine one. But anyways, they are self-interested, and then they are rational. And then individuals rank available alternatives. Okay, A, B, C, D, and then so I'm going to pick this one, alternative A, to fulfill or to achieve my goal. And that's the meaning of the rationality. And the third one is maximization. I mean, they are just pursuing the optimal result from their choice. And so the fourth one is about information risk. I mean, individuals sometimes I mean, it is not realistic to assume that individuals are always really well informed or they know everything, so they can calculate the possibility of all alternatives they have. No, it's not true. So what I want to say here is that sometimes they're in a really certain situation, they know everything, but in many times they're in a risky situation where they have only limited information, and sometimes they know nothing. And so this approach has been really developed and elaborated as time goes by. So what I now in this paper focus on is not actually public choice, but rational choice institutionalism. But you don't need to remember this. What I want to say is that choice happens given the constraints they face. You know, institutions, they behave and then they choose their own choice within and given the institutional conditions. So this is Elinor Ostrom, who first applied the public choice theory to the public administration. And yeah, if you're interested, you can read the Tollison's paper. He's regarded as a pioneer in this field. I mean, he also actively applied the public choice theory to antitrust. And of course, he's a little bit different. He held a little bit different perspective from mine. And he is called the Virginian public choice scholar. But what I read is more about the Bloomington public choices. But this is a necessary situation. This is a necessary situation. What I want to say that I don't stress the possibility of government failure. What like them, but I mean, Tollison. He tends to emphasize the possibility of government failure using the theory of public choice. But anyways, this is not my perspective, but I just wanted to introduce his contribution to the field of public choice and antitrust. Okay, it's really interesting papers. I mean, the second one is really interesting, FTC. And some people argue that FTC may select the cases based on market impact or the seriousness of the problem, but it was not true. If the chair of and then the executive level of the FTC selected cases considering its personnel's interest. I mean, usually lawyers. They are really temporarily hired, so they wanted to experience as much as they can the trial experiences. So, so the executive of the FTC tended to choose simple cases like a cartel or something, but the economists they were usually hired really in a long-term basis, so they preferred really market structuring cases. So, but anyways, yes, that was if you're interested, you can just read it. Yes. Oh, okay, let's just apply and let's move on to the real case. I applied this frame to the Korean Air and Asian Airlines case. And then as I introduced from the very beginning of this presentation, Korean Air and Asian Airlines case indicates that the acquisition of Asiana Airlines by the Korean Air, which was initiated by the Korea Development Bank, which is called KDB, with the approval of the Industrial Competitiveness Enhancement Minister Council, it's a presidency council, at the 25 meetings of November 2020 and conditionally cleared by the KFTC without sufficient remedies. So this is the timeline of this merger. And then yeah, you can see that in 2024, January, KFTC imposed some remedies to this deal and cleared the deal as well. So yeah, you can see the timeline of this case. And why I repeatedly call this case suboptimal? Because the first reason is that it created a monopoly. And it was a horizontal merger between first and second largest national airlines, which were practically the only two major players in the domestic market. And it was very certain that the merger would result in high market concentration and exceeding 60% or 100% on various international and domestic passenger and cargo routes, and was highly likely to cause significant price increases. And the second reason is that the anti-competitiveness was objectively predictable. One really interesting example is that in 2018, the government did already know that the airline market was highly concentrated. So they needed some measures to ease this situation. But then several years later, they decided to further consolidation between airlines. And the third reason is that there were better options better than Korean Airline. There were some buyers and willing buyers of the Asiana Airlines. And then the thing is, and one more important thing is that Asiana was doing really quite well during the coronavirus pandemic. And so it was turned out that it was not very necessary for the government to intervene in the market. If just to let the Asiana Airlines just to do its own job, then it could have done better. So, but anyways, it happened. And some argue that from the perspective of national champion theory, and so it may be good to have a really one big mega carrier for this really small nation, and from the perspective of national economy or national interest. But the thing is that even in the view of national interest, it is really skeptical whether this deal yielded the best result, because in the course of several authorities' reviews and decisions, really a lot of several hundreds of slots were ordered to be divested to other competitors or other national airlines. And the FTC and the European Commission ordered them to divest Asiana Air's cargo business, which was really lucrative back then. So can any synergy between these two firms be expected from this? It's highly unlikely, and even the KFTC recognized that this still may not be achieved. The synergy effect that was argued by the Korean airline business. So, in conclusion, this deal appears to benefit only the Korean airline and especially the owner of this company, and not the market, not the consumers, not the workers, or even the national economy. So why it happened? Why did it happen? In order to find out the reason, my co-author and I chose a public choice framework and analyzed this case using that theoretical findings. So first main actor is KDB and the Institutional Council, which is established under the president's room. And as you can see, KDB first reported its plan to merge these two firms, and then in that meeting, several ministers were there, Minister of the Economy and the Finance, Minister of Trade, Industry and Energy, Minister of Employment and Labor, and Minister of the some Presidents or something. I mean, one of the reasons why I listed up these ministers is that, as we will see later, that they are really strong ministers in within the Korean government. I mean, compared to Korean Competition Authority, they are really powerful. As you can see here, I mean, the Ministry of Finance and Economy has always been shown as the most powerful department within the government, and the KFTC at best is recorded as just the middle powerful department within the government. And so, as you can see here and the previous slides, that almost all of them were more influential and more powerful within the government than the KFTC. It was the point that you have to remember when you look at this case. And yeah, decision. I mean, before them, KDB reported this case, and then they decided to promote the merger of Korean Airlines and Asiana Airlines. And KDB injected 800 billion won into Hanjin Coal, which is the parent company of the Korean Airlines, for the acquisition. To put it simply, KDB advised and required the Korean Airlines to acquire Asiana Airlines using this 800 billion won. And then the Korean Airlines decided to acquire Asiana Airlines using this money. But the thing is that why KDB made such a decision is that, well, you have to first consider that coronavirus happened, and trillions of won of public funds had already been injected into two airlines. And so KDB, in a situation where it suffered from really a lot of pressures from the politicians that you have to exit the public fund, so otherwise we cannot support you. And so it was highly pressurized. So it needed to do something in order to recover the public fund. So it decided just to persuade the Korean Airlines to acquire the Asiana Airlines. From their perspective, it was the most possible ways to sell to Korean Airlines, to Asiana Airlines. And then, yeah, one thing is that a manager and at the Korean Development Bank, and he didn't know very well about competition and how the merger policy is really aggressive here in Korea, as you can see here. And then he expected that if you combine the market share of the two major national airlines and LCCs, domestic market share in 2019 was at 42%. It was totally wrong, but anyways, he was really proud, and he was not very shy to say that. Anyways, yeah, we can say that academically that he was in a situation with limited information about the current competition and market competition and something, but even he had a really limited knowledge about the competition policy. He was in a position to make a really serious and really critical decision, which may affect the market competition. So this was the problem. But anyways, yeah, these are the former chief of the KDB, and he also mentioned that our goal is to exit the public funds so as soon as possible. And then the current chair also um, in a National Assembly inspection. So he stated like this: the possibility of recovering the previously injected 3 trillion won of public funds become very low. So we have to make this deal done. So this was the background of the KFTC's, KDB's decision to promote this deal. Okay, then Korean Air. Okay, it's very easy. I mean, Korean Air was he was really happy. I mean, oh, government, I can remove my competitor with the government's money, and I was in a financial distress, so no reason to reject the KDB's offer. And more than that, the owner of the Korean Air was in a boardroom conflict situation and fighting against his sister and aligning shareholders. And if he accepted the KDB's offer, then he was able to beat these competitors in the boardroom conflict. So for him, there was no reason to reject the KDB's offer. And so the district court, in a really different lawsuit, summarized the facts as follows. So if you're interested, you can just read it. And why KFTC made such a really stupid decision. Because you have to remember that the KFTC is an integrated agency model, where investigation and education functions are established within a single organization, which means that KFTC investigate the fact and then they decided based on the investigation findings. So, which means that it is really good in many regards, but it cannot be denied that it weaks in terms of independence, especially from external influences. That's what usually discussed in previous papers. If you're interested in, you can see this Michael Trevelyankov's paper that I cited in the footnote number 1. And then, yeah, KFTC is one of central administrative agencies, which means that it was exposed to other agencies' influences. And the third is that the president has a sole appointing authority, which means that he can appoint every commissioner of the KFTC, 9 commissioners. So commissioners, they are also human beings, and the individuals, they couldn't help but checking what the president's will. So they always deny such an argument, but if we accept the public choice theory, then we have to consider this fact. And given these aspects, we can conclude that institutional settings suggest that it was difficult for them to expect. It was difficult to expect the decision makers of the KFTC to strictly adhere to their mandate. They needed to consider what the government's policy and what the president really think and what other ministers want, because they can influence them, and then they are just one of the members of the cabinet. So that was the institutional settings when they made such a decision. And as we have already seen, this table shows that the KFTC was not very influential and a strong agency within the Korean government as a whole. But when I show this table to audiences, they're in Korea, they are really interested in the result, because for normal people, I mean, the citizens and businesses, KFTC, the competition authority, looks really strong. But KFTC enforcers, I mean, officers and the personnel, they always argue themselves that we have no power within the government. So please stop blaming us. I mean, our decisions are not coming solely from our own wills. I mean, please understand the context So this table shows that what the background of the KFTC's argument is. And interviews shows that it's very also the interesting part. The former head of the KFTC's murder division, it says that if Korean Air had independently decided to acquire Asiana and notify the murder, it would have been 100% disapproved. He was so sure that, but if I were in the position of reviewing the murder of the two airlines, I wouldn't have had the courage to oppose a pre-decided government decision with my life on the line. So it was the background of the decision, and so that's the Constitutional Court pointed out the problem of the or issues or the characteristics of the KFTC and its decision-making structure. And the others, I mean, why consumers and competitors and the workers, the citizens were really quiet. They kept silence. Of course, they argued something, but they did not very effectively against the deal and against the decision, because there was no institutional measure to officially tackle the government decision. And we found out that it's also one of the problems that the Korean government and the institutional settings had in this case. So it was a kind of a rational ignorance for them. Harm they will suffer is really short term, and it's a really long term, and they will not face a price increase in a really short term. So, but if they if they decide to organize a political movement and organizations to against the decision, it will cost a lot. So it can be seen as a rational ignorance. Just let this happen. Okay, so conclusion is that this Korean Air and Asiana Airline decision can be seen as a kind of a social dilemma. Every actor involved in this decision behaved in a rational way, but the outcome was really irrational. So as this picture shows, that if everyone decides on their own preference and in a rational way, but the outcome is really irrational and then tragedy for all of them, we call it social dilemma. So it's totally different from what we learned from economic classes, basic economic classes, in which usually we are usually taught that individuals' free choices can yield the best outcomes. So you may have heard the prisoner's dilemma situation. So this is the same concept. So here in this slide, I summarize some effects of my findings of my research. So, and then I summarize some what if the KTB or the other institutional settings established in a different way, or what if the KFTC was designed to participate from the very beginning in a larger scale merger-related policy decisions, or at least if it had not been needed to bear the significant burden of potentially overturning the decisions of other government bodies, which means that other parties have already decided. So for the KFTC, if we overturn this decision, it would be my sole responsibility. So it was really afraid of that situation. So if institutional setting was established in a different way to ease its burden, for example, if Ministry of Finance can overturn a KFTC decision again, then perhaps I guess that for the KFTC, it was a bit more easier for them to choose to overturn the government's previous decision. But anyways, so based on such questions and the points, I and my colleague suggested this 3 recommendations as follows. The first one is that what if we have a presidency level competition council like the United States? As you may know or may not know, I mean, the United States has recently installed a competition council at the presidency institution. So as far as I know, it has been working really well, and then encouraging not only the KFTC, but also other departments to implement competition policy when they implemented their own policy. So it's a kind of competition governance. So that's what I argue, that if we have such institutional setting, then well, we don't need to see any repeated stupid decision in the future. And this is the picture of the competition council in the United States. And the second recommendation is that what if, as I just mentioned, we can ease the burden of the KFTC. I borrowed this proposal from the German institution, ministerial authorization, which says that even if the competition authority decides in a certain way, and for example, block the merger, economy ministry can overturn the competition authority's measure. Of course, this system is harshly blamed in Germany, as far as I know, because pro-competition decision can be overturned by the industrial government. But in Korea's context, this may be a kind of an improvement, because KFTC is already highly affected by the other ministers' decisions. So I said here it should be approached with extremely caution. So German system is not the perfect. I think, as far as I know, France has the same system. But anyways, yeah, we can consider to introduce this system to ease the burden of the KFTC. And the third one is to expand the ways for third parties to intervene in government decisions. And surprisingly, in Korea, for the KFTC decision, third parties cannot get the legal standing. So it cannot sue this case, even if you're really closely related to this decision. But as far as I know, in Chasra case, I mean, it was allowed for them to challenge the case, but I'm not sure, so I didn't put it in this slide. But anyways, United States and the European Union, they have a similar system allowing third parties to challenge the competition authority's decision. And then, so it was even not new for Korea, because Constitutional Court, although it rejected the argument at the final phase, but it once reviewed the argument of the third party against the competition authority's decisions. So we can consider introducing a similar institutional measure to allow them to challenge the competition authority decision. That's what I thought as a solution of this case. So yeah. So that's all. And thank you very much for listening. And if you have questions, thank you. Really, thank you for listening.